Hello, and welcome to It's All a Little Weird, the podcast where we discuss ghostly goings-ons, cryptids, conspiracy theories, little green men, and the government's secret agenda. Today's episode, we're going to be covering 112 Ocean Avenue, or it is more commonly known, the Amityville house. We're going to be looking into the history and also some of the goings-on that's happened in this house. So if you are new around here, please do me a favour, subscribe to the channel for more like this. Also consider liking the video if you do so wish. This is going to be the beginning of a little series that I'm going to be doing on Ed and Lorraine Warren, two of history's most famous demonologists, with a case study of over 1,000 cases. Over the next coming weeks, we're going to be covering a couple of them. So sit back, relax, and try not to get too spooked by the Amityville house. Now, we can't really go anywhere in the Amityville house without discussing 112 Ocean Avenue itself. The house is based in Amityville in New York. The property itself gained more notoriety in 1970. It is a beautiful, stunning, New England-inspired building. But what was about to happen tore the house apart. The history of the Amityville house began in 1924 when it was built by John Moynihan. The house remained in the Moynihan family until 1960, when it was sold to the DeFeo family. We are going to very slightly touch on the DeFeo family while we talk about this first bit, because on November the 13th, 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr. murdered his parents and 4 siblings in this very house. He was later convicted of the murders and is currently serving 6 life sentences. Now, while I was looking through the history of this house, I was trying to find the validity of a claim that someone once wrote about a man called Fletcher. Now, this man called Fletcher could have either been a magician or a witch, but I couldn't really find any facts. Please, if you can tell me of a direction that I can go to find this man, then please let me know. But Fletcher apparently fled the Salem witch trials and moved into this very house. He claimed a lot of the things that a few of the famous residents have also spoke about. Now, while he was on the run and living in this house, I can't find any record of him actually being a lawful entity in this house. Because throughout the history, it was built by the Monahans and then the DeFeos, and also the world-famous Lutz family, which we will be touching on a little bit later. Now, one of the things that this Fletcher proclaimed, if there ever is any validity to his claims, is that the house was built on an ancient Indian burial ground. Now, throughout history, the USA has been at war, and there are ancient Indian burial grounds throughout America. So statistically speaking, shouldn't most houses be built on an Indian burial ground? Well, we're going to move on from this Fletcher character into things that we have actual facts on. We're going to talk about the DeFeo family. Now, in 1960, when the DeFeo family moved in, they were your average American family. They moved in there, the neighbours said that they were genuine, there was no talk of what was about to happen. Because as I stated, on November the 13th, 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr. shot and killed his family. The victims included his parents, 2 brothers and 2 sisters. The murders were discovered on the following day, November the 14th, when co-workers of Ronald's father, Ronald DeFeo Sr., went to the house to check on him after he failed to show up for work. They found the bodies of the entire families in their beds, all shot with a .35 caliber rifle. Now, Ronald DeFeo Jr. initially claimed that the murders were committed by a group of unknown assailants, but he eventually confessed to the killings. He was found guilty of 6 counts of second-degree murder and was sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences in prison. The DeFeo murders were a shocking and gruesome crime that revived widespread media coverage at the time. The event also provided a backdrop for the alleged supernatural occurrences that were later reported by the Lutz family, who moved into the house after the DeFeo's murder. Now, obviously, one of the things that we've got to talk about with the DeFeos is what drove Ronald DeFeo to commit these dreadful murders. Now, I haven't seen any psych evaluations or anything like that from Ronald, but apparently he was hearing voices and people telling him to do it once he started confessing. For him to pin the blame, that's got to be questioned of his mental stability. A group of unknown assailants? I have to question his mental validity. Once he'd confessed, this is where we start talking about the voices that he heard. When we start talking about the backdrop that comes from the Lutz's family, voices can be heard, nasty smells of decomposition, and multiple other things. The DeFeo murders speak true. Now, one of the other things that has always been questioned is how Ronald got away with this. I, for one, have children, and a wife, and a dog. I don't know why you needed to know that, but you do. Now, if I ever spun out of control and went to murder my family, or one of my children did, surely you'd hear some shots. Now, one of the things that was said is the family didn't look like they'd been moved. There were no signs of drags, and there were no drugs in the system. So how did this happen? Well, according to the toxicity, not a single drug was found. According to witness statements, not one scratch mark or one movement had been found. Could this be Ronald walking into every room, being genuine and nice to his family, and then killing them one by one? This is a question that Ronald has never answered, how he actually did it, other than shooting. So we have to question how. How was he able to walk around the house? I, for one, would hear gunshots going off around the house. If anyone has any further information, please let me know down in the comments. After the murders, the house was put up for sale, and in December 1975, it was purchased by George and Kathy Lutz. The Lutz claimed that they had experienced a series of terrifying paranormal events during the 28 days they lived in the house. These included strange noises, foul odours, and apparitions. They also claimed that they saw red eyes staring at them in the darkness, and that they were physically assaulted by unseen forces. Now, 28 days is a very short period of time. Now, depending on which story you listen to or which paper you read, the Lutz family were either told that the house had a sadistic history, or they bought the house on the cheap. Now, a lot of what George and Kathy have said in the past doesn't ring true. They said that the estate agents didn't tell them that the house had such a checkered past. They got told that the house was just for a quick sale. But according to other sources, they were told about the history of the house, and they bought it anyway. It's up to you what you want to believe, and I will never force an opinion on anyone. But which one do you think it would be? Now, these are the people that are the inspiration for the Amityville horror. So obviously the paranormal side of this, it is blown up to imaginable sort of areas because it's been publicized so many times. It got turned into a book, it got turned into a movie, and it also got turned into case notes by Ed and Lorraine. The Lutz eventually fled the house and contacted paranormal experts who conducted investigations and claimed to have found evidence of supernatural activity. However, some people have disputed the authenticity of the Lutz's claim, and there has been much debate over the years about the veracity of the events that were reported to have occurred in the house. Now, moving on with the events that supposedly happened in the house. According to George and Kathy, they were smelling rancid smells as they walked the halls of the house. One of the other occurrences was seeing flies while walking down the halls, even though it was the dead of winter, and flies shouldn't be flying. They also said that going down into the cellar, they seen a blocked off room with red walls. Their daughter, who also lived in the house with them, apparently spent no time playing outside with the neighbours and only spent time with an imaginary friend who would sometimes upset her. The apparitions was of a supposedly old gentleman who used to walk through the top of the room, and also a woman dressed in white. I, for one, don't know where some of these come from, but they apparently seen them. The odours, as I've already expressed, were of decomposition and mould. Now, one of the other things was an increasingly uneven feeling that was going through the house. This sent George spiralling. He became aggressive, and so did Kathy. And when the family became aggressive towards each other, things went really south. This has been said to be one of the reasons that they moved out. Now, I, for one, have moved house plenty of times, as I'm sure you guys have too. Now, one of the things that you find about it is it's one of the most stressful times of your life, along with weddings and funerals. So could this be the cause of the aggression amongst the two? While thinking about this, I also thought about those two arguing. Now, if you've ever argued in front of a child, or seen someone arguing in front of a child, children can become very introvert through this. Now, is this one of the reasons that she became so introverted and played with an imaginary friend? If the Lutz family were dealing with financial worries, or other worries that come along with everyday life, this would put strain on any marriage. Could this be the dealings of the aggressive husband, or the hen-pecking wife that makes you react? These are questions that you have to ask yourself when we think about things like this. But 28 fateful days after the Lutz moved in, they moved out. They enlisted the forces of an exorcist, who apparently tried to bless the house and got told to get out by a demonic voice. When all of this started failing, this is when they brought in Ed and Lorraine. But we're actually going to talk about their findings in another video. If you've enjoyed this short little video, then please do me a favour and like the video, and also consider subscribing if you are new. We will be back next week with a look into the history of Ed and Lorraine Warren, world famous demonists.